Doctors froze, nurses screamed. A soaked Belgian Malinois stormed into the ER, carrying a bleeding child on his back. No tags, no owner, no warning. But what happened next left everyone in tears. The wind howled like a living thing outside Valley Cross Memorial, rattling windows and carrying snow that stung the skin like needles. Inside the ER, everything was chaos. Slipping boots, bloodied bandages, the sharp scent of antiseptic, and the voices of doctors rising over the storm's fury. A blizzard had struck without warning, and every corridor pulsed with urgency. Then, without any alarm or announcement, the automatic doors slid open. Heads turned, expecting a stretcher, another patient, maybe a frantic parent. But what they saw made everyone freeze. Out of the blinding white stepped a Belgian Malinois, soaked, trembling, and covered in frost. But he wasn't just wandering in from the cold. On his back was a little girl, limp, bloodied, and barely dressed for the storm. She looked no older than 8. Her face was pale, smeared with blood. Her hands dangled lifelessly by her side, and her lips had a faint blue tinge. The thin fabric of her pajamas clung to her small frame, soaked and stiff from the cold. One shoe was missing. Her hair, once golden, was now matted with snow and dirt. The dog didn't bark, he didn't whine. He simply walked forward, his steps slow, his head low, as if he knew exactly where he needed to go. Doctors and nurses stood in stunned silence. No one had ever seen anything like it. There was no collar, no leash, no owner in sight. The dog didn't come in fear. He came with purpose. It was Dr. Mia Rivers, fresh off a double shift, who first moved. She crouched low, speaking softly. "I've got her," she whispered. The Malinois hesitated, just for a moment, then gently stepped aside. The moment Mia lifted the girl, the room snapped back to life. Code blue, oxygen, trauma bay, rushing feet and wheeled carts, but through it all, the dog stood still, watching, waiting. He had done his part, and now it was their turn to save her. For a long, breathless moment, the emergency room held its collective breath. No one moved, no one spoke. The only sound was the steady drip of melted snow pooling beneath the dog's feet. His chest rose and fell with quiet intensity, ears pinned back, muscles taut, a soldier on edge. Dr. Mia Rivers, her heart pounding in her chest, took a careful step forward. The Malinois immediately responded. A deep, guttural growl rose from his throat, not loud, not savage, but firm. His body didn't lunge, but his message was clear. Do not touch her. Mia stopped mid-step. The dog's eyes locked with hers, dark, intelligent, fierce. But beneath the protective fire was something else. Terror. He was scared. Not of them, but of losing the girl he had carried through a snowstorm. His whole frame trembled, not from the cold, but from the unbearable weight of responsibility. Mia slowly crouched, lowering herself to eye level. Her voice softened, each word carefully measured. "You brought her here," she whispered. "You did good. I'm going to help her now, I promise." She kept her gaze steady, her hands still. The dog's growl faded. He tilted his head just slightly. His ears twitched. The fire in his posture flickered, not gone, but tempered. And then, with incredible restraint, he took one step back. That was all she needed. Mia surged forward, arms slipping beneath the girl's tiny frame. The moment she lifted her, her breath caught. The child was ice cold, alarmingly light, and barely responsive. Blood matted the back of her hair. A ragged wound ran along her temple, still fresh. "She's critical," Mia called out, her voice now sharp and commanding. "Let's move. Trauma Bay 2. Nurses and orderlies burst into motion. A gurney rolled from the side. IV bags prepared. Oxygen masks snapped into place. Monitors chirped as the trauma team mobilized with clockwork precision. Still, even as Mia placed the girl onto the gurney, she could feel the weight of the moment lingering behind her. She glanced over her shoulder. The Malinois stood in the exact same place, his paws soaked, his chest heaving, but his eyes never left the girl. A security officer hesitated near him, radio in hand. "Should I?" he began. "No," Mia said firmly. "He stays. He brought her here. He's not a threat." The officer lowered his hand. As the team rushed down the corridor with the girl, the dog started to follow, step by step, slowly, silently, not intruding, just staying close like he had for however many miles through the storm. And no one stopped him. He didn't need a badge or a handler or a voice command. His presence alone told the truth. He wasn't just a dog, he was her protector, and he wasn't going anywhere. Inside Trauma Bay 2, the room buzzed with urgency. Heated blankets wrapped around the girl's tiny frame. Monitors beeped erratically. A nurse inserted an IV while another secured the oxygen mask over her face. Her core temperature was dangerously low, and her pulse fluttered, weak, unsteady. Dr. Mia Rivers barked instructions with practiced control, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. The child's body was shutting down. Hypothermia, blood loss, head trauma, every second mattered. Outside the glass doors, the Malinois sat completely still, his soaked fur clinging to his lean frame. Snow still melted off him, pooling at his feet. He didn't move, didn't blink. He just stared through the glass, his gaze fixed on the girl. A nurse passing by slowed, glancing at the dog. "He hasn't budged," she whispered, "not even once." A tech had tried to scan him for a microchip. Nothing, no collar, no tags, no owner came rushing in. He had appeared out of nowhere, carrying a child who was seconds from death, and now he waited. Waited like he belonged there, like his place was next to her, and somehow everyone felt it too. No one had the heart to ask him to leave. He had already proven that he would walk through a storm for her. Now he would sit through the unknown, alone, afraid, and faithful. While doctors fought to keep the girl alive, hospital security reviewed the surveillance footage, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The video played in grainy silence, until at 4:26 p.m., a shadow moved at the edge of the frame. Through the swirling snow emerged the Malinois, head low, body shivering. Draped across his back was the small, unmoving figure of a child. He paused briefly outside the ER doors, as if taking one last look at the world behind him, then pressed forward with slow, determined steps. He hadn't stumbled upon the hospital. He had chosen it. Each step was calculated, each movement deliberate. There was intention in every frame, as though he knew exactly where to go and why he had to get there. Local authorities were alerted immediately. Within the hour, a rescue team, park rangers, K9 units, and deputies began retracing the dog's path, following the faint tracks that still remained in the snow. The storm had blurred the edges, but the trail was there, a line of paw prints beside the dragging sweep of a child's foot. The group moved deeper into the forest behind Valley Cross Memorial. The temperature was dropping fast. Icy wind tore through branches, and the sun dipped lower behind the hills. After nearly 2 hours of tracking through snowdrifts and frozen creeks, the team found what they were looking for and what they feared. In a small clearing, half hidden beneath pine trees, stood a burned-out cabin. The wood was scorched black, smoke stains climbing up the timbers. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Outside, frozen droplets of blood clung to the snow like rust-colored pearls. Near the steps was a small, torn backpack, faded pink, one strap ripped clean off. On the back, scrawled in permanent marker, were 2 words, Emily Tran. One ranger knelt beside it, breath fogging in the cold. "She was here," he said quietly, "and she wasn't alone." 2 days later, the monitors in room 217 beeped softly, steady now, a quiet promise of life returning. Nurses had come and gone in shifts, checking vitals, adjusting IVs, whispering updates. The Malinois, who hospital staff had begun calling Shadow, still lay curled beside the bed, eyes never leaving the girl's face. That morning, as the first light slipped through the blinds, her eyelids fluttered. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Dr. Mia Rivers leaned in, barely breathing herself. The girl's lips cracked as they moved. One word came out, ragged but clear. "Shadow." The dog's ears perked instantly. He rose and placed his chin gently on the edge of her bed, letting out a quiet whine. Tears welled in Mia's eyes. Later that day, with a child psychologist beside her and warm broth easing her throat, the girl spoke. Her name was Emily Tran. Through shaky words, she told them what had happened. A man, someone she'd never met, had waited outside her school and said he was a friend of her mom's. He knew her name, her teacher's name, her bus route, so she believed him. But instead of taking her home, he drove her deep into the woods. At first, he acted kind, brought snacks, told stories. Then he turned. He locked the door, shouted, threatened. The food stopped, the warmth disappeared. And when she tried to escape, he hit her. She cried for help, but no one came, except one. "Shadow," she whispered, stroking the dog's soaked fur. "He found me." He wasn't even her dog, he belonged to the neighbor. But somehow he had broken his chain, tracked her through miles of snow, and scratched at the cabin door until she could crawl to him. When I passed out, he didn't leave. He carried me. Her voice trembled. Her hand never left Shadow's side. The moment Emily finished telling her story, detectives launched a full-scale search. Her description of the man, his beard, the old truck with the dented side, the way he always kept his bag close, painted a clear enough picture. And the burned cabin, the blood, the torn backpack, they all matched. Within 24 hours, a tip came in from a motel clerk 2 towns over. A man fitting the description had checked in under a fake name. He looked rough, nervous, kept the blinds closed, paid in cash. Sheriffs moved in quickly. When they knocked, there was no answer, but they could hear movement inside. Moments later, the door was forced open. The man didn't fight. He just sat on the bed, silent, eyes wide, as if he knew it was over. Inside the room, they found a worn duffel bag. Inside the bag, rope, sleeping pills, duct tape, and a digital camera. Later, a background check confirmed what they feared. He had a record. A prior conviction for attempted abduction. Charges dropped in another state due to lack of evidence. A name that had slipped through cracks. Not anymore. Emily's words had cracked the case open. Shadow's journey had made sure she lived to tell it. When Dr. Mia Rivers heard the news, she looked down at Shadow, resting at the foot of Emily's bed. "You didn't just save her," she whispered. "You brought the truth with you." Justice wasn't just served. It had followed paw prints through the snow to find its way. When Emily was finally well enough to be discharged, a new question lingered. Where would she go now? Her mother couldn't be reached. No relatives had come forward. With no immediate family available, Child Protective Services arranged for temporary foster placement. But Emily had one request. "Shadow stays with me," she said, her voice soft but certain. The room went quiet. The caseworker hesitated. Protocol was clear. Animals weren't typically included in emergency placements. But as she looked at the little girl sitting on the hospital bed, her fingers buried in Shadow's fur, she saw something that no rulebook could measure. The dog lifted his head and rested it on Emily's lap. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just held on, like she had for the past few days. This wasn't just comfort. This was survival. Doctors backed her up. Nurses chimed in. Even Dr. Mia Rivers spoke on their behalf. He didn't just save her life. He's helping her heal. Finally, permission was granted. Shadow rode in the back seat with Emily as she was taken to her new home. When they arrived, he walked each room with her, sniffing every corner, making sure it was safe. That night, Emily curled up in bed, Shadow lying beside her, his body pressed close. No one tucked her in. He did. And in the quiet of that new, unfamiliar house, she finally slept, not with fear, but with peace. A week after Emily was released from the hospital, Valley Cross Memorial hosted a small ceremony in the main atrium. Not for a doctor, not for a nurse, but for a 4-legged hero with silent eyes and an unbreakable heart. Staff gathered along the walls, patients peeked from doorways, balloons swayed from IV poles, and a hand-painted banner read, "Thank you, Shadow." Shadow walked in at Emily's side, his stride steady, head high. He wore a simple red ribbon around his neck, placed there by one of the nurses who had tended to Emily during those critical first hours. He didn't understand the meaning of the ribbon, or the applause, or the camera shutters snapping like fireworks. But when Emily dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around his neck, her small body trembling with emotion, Shadow stood perfectly still, as if he knew. This was her moment, and he was proud of her, too. A reporter captured the image at just the right second. Emily's tear-streaked smile pressed into Shadow's fur, his eyes closed in peaceful stillness. By nightfall, the photo was everywhere. Canine Angel saves lost girl. Hero dog brings child through blizzard to safety. Shadow, the dog who carried her home. But Shadow didn't care about headlines. He didn't need medals. He had Emily. And in every quiet step that followed her, in every gentle breath as he lay beside her bed, he proved that some heroes don't need words or training or recognition. They just need love and the instinct to never let it go. Not all heroes wear uniforms. Some arrive through the storm, soaked to the bone, carrying hope on their back. They don't ask for medals or attention. They just act because love doesn't need instructions. Shadow wasn't trained. He didn't follow orders. But when a little girl cried in the cold, he listened with his heart and answered with his life. Because sometimes the purest kind of courage walks on 4 paws, watches without blinking, and refuses to let go, no matter how deep the snow.